Food security isn't just about full plates. It starts with healthy soil, resilient crops, and farmers equipped for a changing world. As our planet warms and populations grow, food security is no longer a distant goal, it's today's challenge. What if I told you the answer lies in a fusion of indigenous wisdom, cutting-edge science, and bold leadership from the global south? Today we're joined by Dr. Stanford Blade, a visionary who began his journey teaching biology in Cameroon and went on to breed climate-smart crops, shape global agricultural policy, and lead billion-dollar research initiatives. His story is a powerful blend of curiosity, leadership, and impact. If you believe food is more than fuel, that science should have soul, and that innovation must uplift lives, this episode is for you. So, namaste, viewers, and welcome to yet another inspiring episode of Beyond Shodh, and a podcast where we dive into the inspirational journeys of researchers and scientists in the area of STEM ecosystem. And today we are very honored to welcome Dr. Stanford Blade, a distinguished agricultural scientist and a global leader in research and innovation. Currently serving as the Deputy Director General Research at the International Crops Research Institute for the semi-arid tropics. With a mission to tackle the pressing challenges of hunger, malnutrition, poverty, and environmental degradation, Dr. Blade oversees efforts to improve dryland farming systems.
Formerly Dean of the Faculty of Agricultural Life and Environmental Sciences at the University of Alberta, he led a $92 million operation, managed 10,000 hectares of research land, and helped raise over $600 million in research and philanthropic funding. His international roles include Vice Chair of the African Agricultural Technology Foundation and Deputy Director General at ICRISAT. He has worked in over 100 countries and is a recognized authority in global agricultural development. His contributions have earned him honors such as the Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee Medal and Fellowship of the Royal Swedish Academy of Agriculture and Forestry. Welcome to Beyond Shodh, sir, and thank you so much for giving us the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Balian, for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation, and thank you for such an interesting podcast that you have developed. I like the title. I think the translation is a beyond research. I think
yes,
that's very much the discussion that I'm looking forward to having with you.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much. So, sir, we just start with the introduction. What are the areas of research that you have focused during your journey?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. We will likely touch on this during the podcast, but I grew up in Western Canada on a dairy farm. I was quite interested by all the things that were going on. Of course, there were always new technologies and new opportunities, but I realized that I was very much interested in science. I took an undergraduate degree in genetics and was very interested in that element of science. And then I had the good fortune after my undergraduate degree to be selected to teach science and biology in the West African country of Cameroon. And really that became a defining moment, because I started to realize that I had a great interest in international activity and international development. That linked to my science activities and then led to a master's degree in crop science, a PhD, which I did from McGill University in Montreal, but all of the research work was done in West Africa at a sister center to ICRISAT, IITA, the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. And then really that led to the rest of my career, to being a scientist within the CG system, of which, of course, ICRISAT and IITA are network members. It led to me being a CEO of a research and innovation corporation that made investments in new ideas and new innovations in Canada. And then to serve as a dean for almost 10 years at one of Canada's leading universities, where I served as the dean of the Faculty of Agricultural, Life, and Environmental Sciences. Just a tremendous group of people and an institution that was now over 100 years old, but has had remarkable impact for farmers in Canada. So when I think about my career as we start this discussion, it's very much defined by curiosity as a young person, and even as a person at this stage of my career, one of entrepreneurship, of working with others, of developing partnerships, and of course, just around the whole area of innovation. So I certainly look forward to having that discussion with you as well.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. And sir, one thing I noticed in your LinkedIn bio that you have written son and grandson of farmers. It's very heart touching to see that you have put that portion in front of your all others affiliations. So why is it so?
I appreciate the fact that you have noticed that. Indeed, I think what is a defining characteristic of many people is their link back to the land, to food production. In my case, I was very fortunate that I grew up on a farm. But I think when I speak to people across the world, no matter even if they're living in high rises in capital cities, we all have a connection. Maybe it was through parents or grandparents or great grandparents or a relative or maybe even a family friend. Everyone wants to make that connection back to the land, to food production. And the reason that I put that forward is to remind myself of the commitment that I have made within my career to ensure that the farm community was always front and center in the work that we do. In my time as a research scientist, as a dean, as a CEO, it's always been good to remind me myself that there is a person that we are working towards. I don't know if this is true, but what I have observed in all of the work I have done in Canada and around the world, based in West Africa, people that are associated with farming, with agricultural production, there's just an innate goodness to these people. You know, they have worked around the biological cycles of planting and harvesting. I think that most individuals that are involved in agriculture, they have to think a lot about where they fit into the grand scheme of things. And indeed, they can't control all of the elements of rainfall and drought and other issues. So for me, being that son and grandson, and in fact, great-grandson of farmers, and if you notice the way I've written that, I have put it inclusively because I see that the women in my family have been extremely capable farmers, just as the men in my extended family. So it's just a way to signal to people in a bio or in other places that I am very focused on who it is that we are actually trying to engage and to improve the lives of.
Great. Very inspiring, sir. And sir, how do you see that your family support throughout your career has shaped you?
Well, I'm sure that this is a tale that many people could tell, but parents are remarkably supportive. They want the best for their children. My observation was my family is very humble. They had a great good fortune to develop a very large multi-million-dollar farm, but they come from very humble beginnings. A very limited educational background, just because it was difficult in the rural areas of Canada when they were growing up. But as soon as I showed an interest in my academic work, and as I was able to be, I would say, a reasonably good student, they were so supportive of that. They made sure, even when I was heading off to Cameroon after my undergraduate degree, at that stage, I was 20 years of age. They, of course, had never traveled to Africa. I had never traveled to Africa. And yet they showed such support that I would go off on this new adventure. And that was true throughout their entire lives. They were supportive of me. They were always ensuring that I was trying to be the best person that I possibly could be. And they have given me much to emulate in the lives that they live through their support to their community, through their endorsement of making sure that all people were taken care of. They set a very good example.
Great, great, great. And you have described it very, very passionately also, sir. So, sir, what pivotal moments in your career shaped your leadership in agriculture, science, and research? And were there any key challenges that you have faced along, and how did you overcome that?
Yes, let's talk about the key moments first. I made reference to the fact that I did start to teach in West Africa, in the country of Cameroon. I was a very young person, so it certainly builds on that theme of curiosity to see all the ways that people were living, in some cases observing subsistence farmers that really had very little access to technology, and they were using the same practices that they had been using for centuries in some cases. So that certainly got me thinking. So that was one turning point. I spent quite a bit of time traveling in Africa at that point. I spent a lot of time in Eastern and Southern Africa as well. And it just started to plant a seed within me that I really enjoyed science, because that's how I'd gotten my undergraduate degree in genetics. I certainly enjoyed understanding different cultures, and I was very interested in the way that agricultural development was being done at that time. So certainly the first turning point, the time that I spent in Cameroon as a very young person. I think the second time would have been when I was named as the Chief Executive Officer of a Research and Innovation Corporation in Canada. We had access to large pools of money, and it started to get me thinking about, how do you actually stimulate innovation? We invested in everything, very basic science, genomics and others, all the way through to startup companies that were doing value-added processing using specific technologies. So I would say the CEO was certainly another turning point. And then the last one was my time as dean at the University of Alberta. The faculty that I led was a very powerful research faculty. Over the time that I was dean, we generated almost $500 million of research funding, not because of me, but because of the great ideas of my colleagues. And maybe I was able to help facilitate some of that work. So if I think about those three areas, first of all, my time in Africa, then my time as a CEO, and then my time as a dean, those were certainly pivotal points in my career. Now, the second part of your question was about challenges that I faced in Innovation Corporation in Canada. We had access to large pools of money, and it started to get me thinking about, how do you actually stimulate innovation? We invested in everything, very basic science, genomics and others, all the way through to startup companies that were doing value-added processing using specific technologies. So I would say the CEO was certainly another turning point. And then the last one was my time as dean at the University of Alberta. The faculty that I led was a very powerful research faculty. Over the time that I was dean, we generated almost $500 million of research funding, not because of me, but because of the great ideas of my colleagues. And maybe I was able to help facilitate some of that work. So if I think about those three areas, first of all, my time in Africa, then my time as a CEO, and then my time as a dean, those were certainly pivotal points in my career. Now, the second part of your question was about challenges that I faced in Innovation Corporation in Canada. We had access to large pools of money, and it started to get me thinking about, maybe I would just wrap that up in the various parts of my career. We face huge issues when it comes to agriculture and food production. And this can cover a whole array of areas. How do we get the right people involved in trying to address issues and solve the problems that we are facing? How do we find the capital, the resources to make investments in these areas? And even how do we make sure that people understand the problems that are there? So I would say that I've addressed this in two ways. First of all, I think that I have developed some capacity to be a good communicator. If people don't understand what's happening, if we can't tell the stories that associate with the issues that we are facing, this is critical. So as we have discussed, I write op-eds for newspapers. I publish journal articles. I use social media platforms like LinkedIn and Instagram and X to access particular audiences about the work that we do. So that first thing to overcome issues is just to communicate. I'm not sure you can over communicate. And I know you, as a podcast host, you are a perfect example of getting the message out about the issues that we face. So communication key. And the second way I would say that we have overcome the issues that I've faced in all of the portions of my career is making the case for how our interests align. So when I meet with partners, and this has been true of every stage of my career, we may have slightly different endpoints. We may have slightly different outcomes. If it's a private sector company, of course, they are interested in making a lot of money. If it's a group like the Gates Foundation, they want to know how they can impact 1 million farmers in Asia and Africa, the places that ICRISAT works. If it's a government agency, they want to know how this fits with the policies of their government. So my responsibility is to show how our interests do align.
Yes.
Of course, in the case of ICRISAT, I can make a very compelling case that the policies of government, the interests of the private sector, and even with the other NGOs and philanthropic organizations, there's a perfect alignment with the kind of work that we can do together. So communication and making the case for alignment, those have been the ways that I have attempted to overcome some of the challenges that we have faced.
Great answer, sir. And you are correctly saying that alignment is very important, because when funding is concerned, it's very important that you hit the correct areas.
Yes.
So, sir, you have had an incredible diverse experiences. Also in different countries. I think 100 countries you have mentioned in your bio that you have experienced. Then working on crop diversification in Alberta and also contributing to the global agriculture research in Africa. So how all these experiences joined together, and what are the key issues that right now the global agriculture sector needs to address on priority?
Yes, I thank you very much for that observation. Some people may say that I can't hold a job. It seems like every 5 or 6 years I go on to something different. I think that same theme of curiosity that we've introduced into the podcast, it's very much the way that my own career arc has developed. I'm interested in new things for reasons for which I'm very grateful. People usually seek me out to test different ideas about where my leadership might be involved. And the elements that you've described, I think, show that level of curiosity. My work in Canada on crop diversification, it was fascinating to look at crops from other parts of the world and then see which ones we could introduce in Western Canada. We've had tremendous success with some of the grain legumes. Most of my work was as a field pea breeder. There are now millions of hectares of field peas that are being grown in Western Canada, along with lentils and chickpea and dry beans. So the grain legumes have been a fantastic success story in Western Canada, again, because of the hard work of so many people. I enjoyed my time as a CEO because it gave me an opening to understand the private sector much more, to make sure I could connect with the private sector and to, in fact, engage them in many significant deals. And of course, the time as dean, the role of dean has changed a great deal in Canada over the last 40 or 50 years. Decades ago, the dean was usually a very strong scientist, but probably didn't have a lot of other responsibilities outside of the day-to-day administrative activity. Deans in Canada now are very much like CEOs of their own faculties. In Canada, deans have remarkable autonomy. So the money that we raised, I spoke about $500 million of external funding for research. We did raise over $150 million from philanthropic sources that had an interest in investing in not only our research work, but of course in the 3,000 students that we were training at the same time as both graduate and undergraduate students. So that diversity, I guess, has been the thing that has fueled and taken care of my curiosity for life, for the way that the world works. And to your final question about the various things that we are facing, really every portion of my career as a research scientist, as a CEO, as a dean, and now having the privilege of being Deputy Director General for Research for ICRISAT, it's how agriculture and food come together with health, with water, with climate. I think we always knew this was the case, but as we sit here this particular year, in this decade, in this century, this is really the ultimate coming together of things that we here in the agriculture and food sector have solutions for. So food security, it's what ICRISAT is working on every day. Climate resilience, it's what we're working on every day. Making sure that there's economic prosperity for people within the entire agro-ecosystem. These are all the issues that we are working on, that my colleagues are working on, both here in Asia, but also in Africa. This is the goal that we are expecting, and we are very confident that we will help to contribute to.
Sure, definitely, sir. So, considering that we are currently times are very challenging, that we need to work towards sustainable crop development and also developing cultivars that are resistant to the climate crisis that we are having. So, how and you also have tremendous experience through innovation. So, how can these research developments, first of all, we do see that the research that is happening in lab is, in few cases, it is translated into a product or an innovation that is widely used. So majority of the lab research just buried in labs and never translated into, a product or a useful innovation. So what is your take on that? What measures or what initiative is needed so that this research can be translated into innovation? How can we really boost that?
Yes, I appreciate the question, and respectfully, I may slightly disagree with the premise of your question, and I think it comes back even to what we have been discussing previously. In the agricultural research space, I think researchers are always thinking about the end product.
Translating.
And if I think about the work of ICRISAT, maybe just a couple of examples. In the case of developing new varieties, which you rightly point out has been one of the primary activities of ICRISAT, but many other international development agencies that are involved in agri-food, ICRISAT is remarkably fortunate. Yes. So we have a gene bank that has over 130,000 accessions of our mandate crops. We do work on millet and sorghum. We do work on groundnut and pigeon pea as well, and as well as chickpea. And so we start with this gene bank. Then we have this amazing breeding program that develops new cultivars that, again, address the issues that you spoke of, drought tolerance, insect resistance, disease resistance. and the kinds of varieties and cultivars that people want, that are either early maturing or that they have particularly nutrient dense capacity. So the record stands for itself. ICRISAT, over its 50 plus years, we've worked with national partners in so many countries in Asia and Africa. We've released over 1,000 new cultivars of the mandate crops that I've spoken about. Those are crops that are going into the fields, that are making a change in the lives of farmers in both Africa and Asia. So that would be exciting. And if I drill down into that, we have a great example here in India of something called the Hybrid Parents Research Consortium. And what that is, our millet breeding program invites the private sector to come and look at our best material. And then those private sector groups, incorporate that into the seed that they actually sell here across the entire nation. So you're right. In some cases, some research does not find an immediate use, I would say, broadly speaking. But in the case of ICRISAT, we are certainly getting new varieties into the hands of farmers here in India and beyond. And maybe the second example, just around the entire area of water management. Our teams work in Bihar, in Orissa, in Uttar Pradesh on all forms of water harvesting, of water management, of using the resilient or the residual water in rice fallow systems to produce new crops. So in the case of new cultivars, the genetic improvement of crops, and in the way that we manage our farming systems, these are the things that are now right in the hands of farmers that are being used today.
Great, sir. We know that ICRISAT is doing tremendous work since so many years, and we also witnessed that in ICRISAT there is a genomics era that brings the focus towards the underutilized crops, and which are usually ignored. And ICRISAT has done so much work on featuring and developing resources for those crops. So, sir, but how can we, we can improve on, in ICRISAT, we are focusing on the breeding, and our ICRISAT is also focusing on the genetic improved or transgenic or CRISPR-Cas based crop improvements also.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the interruption. That's an excellent question. Certainly, we have access to all of the tools that are available around biological nitrification inhibition and other tools that we are using in the transgenic portfolio. I guess my personal view is that we want to be able to have access to every scientific tool that's available. You've mentioned CRISPR-Cas and the remarkable power of gene editing, which is certainly something that we're interested in doing here. As you know, the Union Government of India has provided very appropriate regulatory oversight over the use of these technologies, which we feel is very appropriate. And I guess I would just go back to the first principles. We have all of these remarkable accessions in our gene bank. We feel that those materials have the traits, the genes that we will need for the next 50 years, the next 100 years, the next 500 years. We do then incorporate that material into appropriate background so that farmers can grow these cultivars. And I think you may have also been hinting at, yes, we have all of the tools around looking at the genomic sequences. We also have a very large, one of the world's largest outdoor facilities for phenotyping these genetic materials so that we can understand leaf development. We can understand the way that the grains develop out in real circumstances, out in the open air in ambient conditions. So we get all of that information. And maybe the one thing I haven't highlighted is the work that we do on the value addition side. We have an agro innovation center that works a lot with startup companies and even with multinationals on how we add value to these important crops. So there's a real opportunity, and maybe I would just, if I can, I would just highlight the work, especially around millet. The millets are so well adapted to many areas here in India. However, I think sometimes people have looked at millets, maybe because of policy issues and others. Farmers are making a determination of why they should plant millet. But we are working with so many different groups, including the M.S. Swaminathan Research Foundation and others, to show the remarkable nutritional quality of the millets that are being produced. I would think about the high iron material that we have produced in pearl millet, very nutrient dense. And, these are opportunities, whether it's in school feeding programs and those sorts of things, to get people high nutrition, to get our children high nutrition products. I was going through the Hyderabad airport a couple of weeks ago, and one of the shops had a very large banner that was promoting a millet snack products because, of course, of all of the health benefits of millet as well. So this is not only a product for one economic class. It seems across the board, people are starting to see that millet really is a healthy alternative.
Yes, sir, definitely. Millets are somehow in India, we have focused on two major crops, wheat and rice, and majority of the farmers are focusing on only those crops. But now that awareness is coming, and they are also using. Me myself is from Haryana, where we have grown up eating millets during winters, and it is our staple crop during winter season. And that is how our food changes depending upon the weather conditions. So but certainly this wisdom of our ancestors is fading away. But now the institutions like ICRISAT and other efforts from government also, they are also putting these crops at the top. And now people are also getting educated that they should include these crops for nutrition and just not depend upon wheat and rice. So
that's very interesting. I am pleased to hear that you had that experience in Haryana. And I need to be very clear. ICRISAT works very closely with the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, especially with the Indian Institute for Millet Research. This is very much a partnership, but certainly ICRISAT has been very focused over its 50 plus years on finding all of the benefits associated with millets as well as sorghum with the other cereal.
So, sir, what coming to ICRISAT only, as we are already talking about ICRISAT. So, what are its future vision or future areas of working towards achieving the sustainable food requirements vis-a-vis climate challenges?
Yes. You would know our ethos is transforming dryland agriculture. And it certainly is a fit. We have just completed our next strategic plan for 25 to 2030. And we are very focused in three areas around accelerating crop improvement. And that can be everything from the activities that I've already described, but we're thinking now about the future. Can we develop perennial cereals? Can we develop dual purpose grain legumes that can be used both for fodder and for grain production? So there's a great deal of work in that first category around accelerated crop improvement. Then we do work in the area around resilient farm systems. So the things that I've spoken about with respect to water harvesting, water management, soil health, all of those elements come into play within those resilient farming systems. And the third category is around enabling system transformation. So that's about developing the information that governments can use in identifying new data-driven policy but it also includes what I mentioned with respect to agri-processing and agri-innovation, how we can foster startups and those kinds of things. So we're very focused in those three areas, and maybe just a couple of new ones in the plan that we're thinking about as far as vision. We're very active in the digital agriculture space. We have a very strong geospatial mapping program.
Yes.
And this is being used today in collaboration with a number of states to start to incorporate new ideas around crop insurance so that we can monitor farmers' fields. Governments are working with us on that here in India. And of course, we're looking at using satellite-based imaging for understanding crop productivity, whether or not there are ways that we can increase the amount of crop production in particular regions. We can now map down almost to the field size in some of the work that we're doing in Bihar. So these are the kind of new tools that we're interested in. And then I would just highlight the area around soil health.
Yes.
I know that you've interviewed Dr. Ratan Lal. He is truly the global expert scientist, so I wouldn't want to wander too far into the soil science area. But nowadays, when we can start looking not only at the soil physical characteristics and the soil chemical characteristics, but also to monitor the living organisms in the soil as well, those bacteria and fungi and other nematodes and others that actually create a healthy soil, a sustainable soil. This is another interest that we are very much focused on as well. So it's an exciting future vision.
Great, great, sir. And one thing also I want to take your attention on that. Here in India, we have a very prominent problem of stubble burning, and especially in North. And this is the time where we all experience here in North that whole fog is there due to that also contribute. So somehow is ICRISAT also working towards how can this stubble burning, how can we stop the stubble burning, and that stubble can be, maybe through plant breeding, how can it be goes back to the soil and not farmer need not to burn it.
Yes, I know how serious this is, and I know certainly the air quality indices across parts of the country can be very problematic at this time of the year. We are not working explicitly on burning reduction, but I would say that we are working on how we can make all parts of the plant usable so that there can be ways. Of course, in the case of livestock, forage and fodder, several states we are working on to make sure that we can increase the amount in the case of something like millet, so those stocks can be valuable fodder. And what we've seen, I don't know what your experience has been, the price of fodder as a possible commodity has actually gone up in the past number of years. So this should be seen more as a resource, as an opportunity, rather than just something to be burned and to be lost, many of the nutrients and other things. So the overall idea of making this a much more cyclical arrangement of making sure that nutrients are returned to the soil, that is certainly the end goal.
And also it requires so much of the policymakers to be step in. And then, so sir, you have such a global experience, and then ICRISAT is also working on different countries. And so what all common issues or common problems are there which can be applied in all of the countries in which ICRISAT is focusing on?
Yes, that is a very large question. We could do about 10 podcasts on just that topic, but I think it's a very valuable one to raise. Here in India, I think I've outlined some of the things that we work on, developing of new cultivars, making sure that we are working at a landscape level. Maybe I just spend a bit of time then on the work we do in Africa. So we have research centers, stations, both in West Africa, in East Africa, and also in Southern Africa. And what we are finding, maybe I'll just use the example of increased drought. So I was in Africa about a month ago, and I had the great privilege to discuss agricultural issues with the Honorable Minister from Zimbabwe in Southern Africa. And in Zimbabwe, just as we have discussed, in that case, maize is really the major crop that many farmers work on, that government policy supports. But now, due to climate change and because of some very specific insect issues, the fall armyworm is attacking maize in large areas of Zimbabwe and other parts of Southern Africa. The minister was very interested in the discussion around the resilient crops that ICRISAT works on in the case of coarse millets and sorghum in the groundnut production. So governments are thinking now that maybe there are changes that need to be done in the kinds of crops that are included, the way that those crops are supported by government through policy. So maybe the answer to your question that unites the experiences that we've seen in Africa, governments want to ensure that there is increased productivity. They want to make sure that there are resilient cropping systems, that we also have technologies to support. But of course, the bottom line is they want farmers to be prosperous. They want farmers to have an economic benefit in the work that they do, even beyond the subsistence farming that may have happened in the past. And these are all tools. These are all technologies that ICRISAT is working on. And it's very much our interest to work with these governments, with their national agricultural system, with their extension systems in these countries, to make sure that these technologies are made available to farmers in every community.
Do you remember any feedback that can, give a peace of mind that these efforts are now fruiting?
Yes. I'll take two examples, if I might. The first one is actually a Canadian-based one, where I was involved in a field exhibit, a farm tour of the grain legumes that we were doing research on in Western Canada. And I was there with one of the leading plant breeders that really came up with the vision for Western Canada being a producer of grain legumes like lentils and field peas. And there were maybe 200 farmers there. I mean, farmers in Western Canada, of course, farm large areas of land. Many of them are multi-million-dollar operations. But a farmer came forward, and he had two of his, it was quite clear, he had two sons behind him. And this, rather elderly, maybe I don't know what the reputation of farmers are in other parts of the world, but in Canada, sometimes they can be kind of gruff and very to the point. And the person just said to Dr. Slinkard, to Dr. Al Slinkard, Dr. Slinkard, if it wouldn't be for you and the introduction of lentils and field peas into our farm and our cropping rotation, I wouldn't be farming with the two sons that you see behind me today. So it just gave me a real insight into the change that new technology, someone that comes almost with an individual vision to say, yes, we can grow grain legumes in this semi-arid part of Canada. That was, so fulfilling to me. And the other one was in West Africa. I was based in northern Nigeria. At that time, I was a plant breeder working on developing grain legumes, especially a crop called cowpea, Vigna species, in intercropping systems, because that's primarily what is used across the savanna regions of West Africa. And there, it was a bit complicated because, of course, there are cultural issues around working with women farmers and others, but we arranged a situation where we had women translators, and we were talking about one particular cowpea variety that we had developed. And one of the women that was in that circle shared with the group how much she appreciated the new cowpea that we had introduced, not because it was more productive, not because it was drought resistant, not because it was disease resistant, even though all of that was true, but the cooking time was half the time of what the traditional beans, these cowpea, were. And what it meant to her and to her family, she did not have to look for as much firewood to be able to cook that particular cowpea variety. So sometimes it's not even about the agronomy or the breeding. It's actually about the very practical ways that we can improve the lives of people. So those would just be two examples where I had immediate feedback that something that the teams that I was working within, they were really having a clear impact on the lives of the individuals and the communities with which we worked.
Yes, definitely, sir. That second example, it's such a personal reflection of hers, that how this variety can saves her time and also her efforts, so that it is really working in her direction.
Yes.
Great achievement, sir. So,
Thank
sir,
you.
how can, in your view, how can agriculture sector and innovations in agriculture could play a significant role in boosting the bioeconomy in India and also globally? And what
Yes. Oh, sorry, go ahead,
so,
please.
sir, just one. And what all measures as the leading institutions, like ICRISAT and other institution, put forward so that we contribute towards this goal?
Yeah, as you've probably seen from my bio, I've been quite involved with
Yes.
thinking about the bioeconomy and the circular economy. I think the starting point has to be that there's an economic reason. So if people can produce the normal commodities, we should do so. We don't need to think about a circular economy. My experience in Canada, but my experience here as well, has been when prices are low in commodities, we need to maybe think about other ways to use this. I'll call it biomass, but this productivity that we grow in all of our agricultural crops. And I guess what I have been very involved with is thinking about using this biomass in different ways. Now, food is usually the
Yes.
highest value. There's no doubt. If that can happen, great. But if you can use some of the co-products from crops, the stalks, or in the case of trees, some of the other biomass, you can use it to produce new biomaterials, things like insulation or
Yes.
soundproofing. You can actually extract out molecules to find very high value chemicals that would come out of this. And then those other areas of other kinds of bioproducts. So I think we need to think more about that now, the more commonly called the circular economy. And certainly in the case of ICRISAT, we're doing it in very simple ways. In Bihar, we have a problem with water lily that's clogging up waterways. We're working out ways to harvest that and create new organic fertilizer products. So there's some very practical examples about how we can make sure that the circular economy is in place.
Great, sir. And sir, is there any scheme or a facility of ICRISAT that gives trainings or information or incubate startups who are working towards the bio products?
Yes, I appreciate that question. ICRISAT is very focused on capacity development in all of the areas. We just had a group from across Asia and the Pacific learning about gene banks. We just had a group from Uganda here learning about the work that we are doing in Bihar around landscape management and increasing agricultural productivity. And certainly through our agro-processing and business innovation platform, there are also these kinds of training courses that are available. So people should just watch our website, and there's a very specific area where people can look at future training opportunities.
Okay, definitely, sir. You have experience in all that countries, and considering India and the current ecosystem that we have for agriculture research and innovation, what improvements that Indian system needs, and any suggestions from your side?
Well, I'm always circumspect about these sort of things. What I know that ICRISAT can do is to produce the kind of evidence, the kind of data that can be of value to governments wherever we work. We do this with respect to understanding how we can incorporate more youth into agriculture and food processing. We're very active in this area. We're working on the area of social inclusion to make sure that all members of society and of community can take advantage of some of the technologies that are developed. We certainly think a lot about incorporating the idea of gender to make sure that, again, there's equality of access to the kinds of technologies that we do develop, and that we look through the new ideas that we are testing using that gender equity lens. So there are many things that that we are certainly thinking about, and this is not advice to anyone, but my observation is this idea of using food and the connection to nutrition and health is just a tremendous opportunity. When we think about the nutrient-dense materials that we are producing from our crops here at ICRISAT, that will have an immediate impact on the nutritional profile of the people that are using that. And just by obvious outcome, this will improve the health of individuals that are involved in using these products as well. So I don't have any prescriptive suggestions, but making sure that we connect agriculture to food, to nutrition, to human health, I think that's very much something that's going to be of importance as we go forward.
Definitely, sir. So, sir, your work spans both scientific research as well as the leadership in international agricultural development. How this dual role shaped your understanding of global agriculture, and what solutions are needed to address them?
Yes, certainly my career, my career arc follows a narrative that incorporates some very obvious elements. Certainly that idea of curiosity, always wondering why things can't be improved, whether I'm looking where I grew up in Canada or whether I'm traveling in some other part of the world. Certainly thinking about that opportunity for innovation. How can we introduce new ideas and what those new ideas might be? That's certainly true when I travel both here in India, but also in the countries that we work in Africa. Just, you know, that whole idea of that stream of how a good idea actually becomes real in the case of innovation. And then certainly part of my role in all of the areas that I've been involved with, I would label just under the category of entrepreneurship. I know that some people don't think that might be the case of an academic or even of a CEO of a research investing fund. But I would look at entrepreneurship as trying to find what might be possible. So using, of course, a technology base, but finding the people that want to make investments. That's certainly what I do here at ICRISAT, and you know, the major partners that want to make investments in the work that we do. We're very fortunate to have strong support from both the union government and state governments here in India as well. So it's about curiosity, it's about having an eye for innovation, and it's wanting to be an entrepreneur, to put together the deal, the partnership that will actually make sure that someone's good idea is actually implemented to make sure that people and communities benefit.
So, sir, any advice to the budding entrepreneurs who are working towards starting their startup journey in agriculture? Any advice, key advice, getting how to get funding, what areas to focus on? Any advice?
Well, I don't know if I would focus on areas, but I would just say from my observation here in India, how many good ideas there are out there. And we have tens upon tens of companies that work with us in our agri-innovation platform. You know, they're looking for product formulation, they're looking at marketing opportunities, and we have the expertise that they can reach out to. And again, they should just visit our website to look at the Agri-Innovation platform, and they would find a lot of information about how they might connect. I think that so many of the new technologies that are coming forward, frankly, it's easier to deploy in agriculture and food. I know many of my colleagues that I know in the medical platforms, it requires years of testing. It takes millions of dollars. And I think we can get innovations into the hands of farmers and of food processors much more quickly. And then when it comes to finding resources, I realize it's difficult, no matter where you are in the world, to find people to invest. But this is an interesting time. People do seem to be looking at the agri-food space as something that's of great interest. If you track the global investments in agri-food, we have funding partners that are coming in that have no experience in agri-food, but they want to make investments because they see the tremendous opportunities for growth. So in general, of course, I'll go back to my theme, whether you're a startup or a multinational, to be curious about what the next innovation might be. And then you just have to be very a stalwart in pushing forward, because there are many hurdles, but the successful groups seem to be able to find their way to create new products that people want to have.
Definitely, and great advice, sir. And sir, your key mantras to the students who are working towards in research and they want to make their career in research.
Well, I have a bit of a recency effect, because I was just visited by a student from Telangana who did just a remarkable job here as an intern. I think he first came when he was 16 years of age. He worked with our entomology group. He's a superb science student, so that he received a scholarship to go to Cornell in the United States, one of the top Ivy League universities. He also was just invited to give a presentation at the World Food Prize celebration in Rome. But he was here in my office in Patancheru last week. And just to see that enthusiasm, and again, at the risk of repeating myself, his curiosity in doing interesting things. And the advice that I had for him was, of course, work hard on your particular topic area that you are interested in, but take the time to learn about other new ideas that are coming. When I was a student, I went to go see the lectures of Nobel Prize winners in medicine. I went to annual meetings of private companies just to understand how those private companies operated. I think it's good for students, of course, to be very focused in a particular area, but they shouldn't be afraid to cast the net a little bit wider, to seek other experiences, especially as students. A large university campus has so many seminars and guest speakers. People should take advantage of that. But I'm pleased and this will be my final statement, at the interest that students have in agriculture and food. And when I was dean in Canada, nothing made me happier than to have a student come who had graduated in computer sciences or maybe in public health, but they came to our faculty for a master's or a PhD because they saw such opportunity and such impact possible to work in the agriculture and food system. So I would just welcome all students, even if they have other disciplinary interests, to think about addressing some of the major challenges and the opportunities that we have in the agriculture and food system.
Great, sir. And sir, what advice do you give to your younger self, considering, and how do you see your journey as? What is your vision for future?
Well, I'll handle the first two. I always like it when that question is asked of other people, but I have to think a bit about for myself. I think my younger self always wondered about how I was going to be able to combine these interests in science, in agriculture. It's my interest in international work. It was a very complicated future for just where my career might go. But at this stage, I've just had remarkably good fortune, much of it serendipitous, but maybe a little bit because of my own tenacity and my own willingness to be a bit of a risk taker. People shouldn't just worry quite as much. The right things will happen at the right time, but people have to make sure that they keep investing in the work that they do. My future is, of course, working here at ICRISAT to make sure that we can deliver to those farmers and to those agri-food processors in both Asia and Africa to make sure that we can do the important work that we're doing here in India. It's an exciting time. It's so great to work with amazing people within ICRISAT, but also all of our partners, our collaborators, our stakeholders. 2024, as we're very close now to moving into 2025 and beyond, the opportunity for agriculture and food is remarkable. And maybe my last statement, I don't know how you would agree with this. I'm so pleased that your podcast focuses on STEM. I guess I would like to maybe give you a hint that sometimes I talk about STEAM. So it's not only about science and technology and engineering and maths, but the A is for agriculture, that people would think especially about the work that goes on in agriculture. So this is sometimes the reference I make when people are talking about the very important ideas around STEM.
I will change it to STEAM. Definitely, sir.
I don't want to confuse people because STEM is so well known, but it's just an observation that occasionally I very much support your idea, and it's not a criticism of you using STEM, but it's just a little bit of an amusing viewpoint from our standpoint. I think it's important to highlight these areas, and your podcast is doing such a good job. So thank you very much. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciated the opportunity to talk about our work.
Thank you so much, sir.